talk. My name is Gareth Jenkinson. I am a South African broadcaster. I've been working for Cointelegraph since 2017, covering the cryptocurrency and blockchain space. So I think it's fair to say I've seen some highs and lows, and I'm sure many people in this room have seen the same highs and lows. We are talking everything Metaverse today, and I'm quite excited for this panel. I think everyone here is very conversational and has a lot to say, so I'm looking forward to it. And we have some different perspectives and different offerings and takes on the Metaverse, and I think that's quite indicative of what the Metaverse is, because it is different things to different people, right? And there's many expressions of it and many ways of looking at it and many ways of doing it. But before we get into the meat of it, I want to give everyone an opportunity to introduce themselves, what they're doing and how they're involved in the Metaverse, and how you guys are driving the space. And I think we'll start with you first, Emma.
Hi, everybody. How are you? Okay, come on, guys. Help me out here.
Very
How are you
good.
guys doing? Thank you, Emma. I feel you. So my name's Emma Todd. I am the CEO of MMH Group. I'm also on the board of tokens.com, and that's primarily why I'm here today, because Tokens owns 60%, approximately 60% of Decentraland, and so that's why I'm here. I am also the newly minted ambassador to the Metaverse. Thank you, GBBC. Thank you, GBBC Finance. I'm excited about that. And I am here to have some really good conversation about the Metaverse. And I'll pass it on to Dirk.
No problem. Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Dirk Lueth. I'm co-founder and co-CEO of Upland. No big group. Have anyone seen this llama? This llama? No?
We're going to speak about that llama
We know
soon.
a real llama.
So Upland is today, in terms of landowner, the largest metaverse. We have over 300,000 landowners. We are based on the real world, and probably going to talk a little bit more about Upland a little bit later. But one thing maybe to mention, so if you're a big football fan or soccer, or it's called in the US, and you want to get to the goal of Messi, you have to go actually to Upland in order to buy it as an NFT, because we have a partnership with the FIFA. I'm also wearing other hats, so one hand, also happy to announce, together with you, I'm ambassador for the Metaverse.
There are two of us? What? It's okay.
There we go. An esteemed panel.
Yeah. Then the other thing is, so I got really early involved with Metaverse. So I also wrote a book last year called Navigating the Metaverse, together with Kathy Hackel and Thomas Di Bartolo from Berkeley. And very proud it became a bestseller on Amazon. And last year also, I put actually all Metaverse leaders together, the co-founders, the CEOs, and said we all have to work together, because obviously Web3. And we started the Open Metaverse Alliance for Web3 called OMA3. I'm currently chairing it, and we have 1,000 companies who have signed up for it. So in case someone in the audience here is in that space, I encourage you also to sign up. It's oma3.org, because what we want to really push forward is everything interoperability, this hard word, and openness and user-centric, user-controlled metaverse.
Hey everyone, I'm Vince Cacace. I'm the CEO of Vertebrae. Vertebrae is a 3D and AR commerce company, and so we help brands and retailers to have virtual try-on and product placement experiences, typically on their mobile websites and apps, but there's obviously metaverse applications. I'm typically one of the more pragmatic people in these types of conversations, because a lot of what I do is trying to drive meaningful conversion, return reduction for retailers and brands today in the channels where all of their customers are currently shopping, but obviously there are large metaverse implications to that as well. We got acquired by Snap in July of 2021, and so now I'm focused on building some cool enterprise tools at Snap and a bigger offering, and I will pass it off to Dave.
Thanks, Vince. There we go. I've been I've been leading both our blockchain business that I founded in 2015 and our extended reality business next to each other for a few years. And so as of 18 months ago, I finally had a word for that. And so now I lead Accenture's Metaverse business globally. And We maybe just as a bridge, we formally, my group is actually called the Metaverse Continuum Business Group, and we're putting a lot of weight on the word continuum because we do view it as such a range of different technologies and channels and innovation waves that are coming together, and we're kind of spotting ourselves and our clients let's avoid the metaverse not metaverse debate because that's pointless, and actually let's just view it as a continuum and a progression towards a whole new digital world.
Yeah, I think that was going to be my starting point was, how do each and every one of you view Web3 and the Metaverse? Because it really is, there are many different iterations of what it is. On this side of the panel, we have 3D and augmented reality. You've created, a real world environment that, people can go and buy land and create businesses within that and sell products, virtual IP, that sort of thing. So it really is multifaceted. And I find that hugely interesting, especially in the context of being in Davos and at the World Economic Forum, because many businesses and institutions can do many different things, and perhaps we can just start with the augmented reality side of that and throw it over to you guys and how you've approached that and how exciting that space is, because I think a lot of people are really getting involved in augmented realities.
So maybe I misspoke. We're heavy in augmented reality and virtual reality. We actually have the world's largest corporate enterprise metaverse place. We've onboarded 100. We now only do our onboarding. As an organization, we're approaching 800,000 people. During the pandemic, we faced the challenge of we onboarded 150,000 people who never sat face to face with another Accenture person nor visited an Accenture office. And so our CHRO had the vision to basically say, I'm going to do all onboarding from this point forward in the metaverse. And so we bought 60,000 headsets. We built a metaverse place called the Nth Floor that works, is just as lovable in 2 dimensions on a laptop as it is or phone as it is in the headset. And now we're 18 months into collecting data around just incredible results we're seeing from reduced retention, reduced attrition, increased retention of content through learning, and then the just incredible employee engagement through collaborative environments and work. And it's now being incorporated into how we work. And so 150,000 people onboarded, but a significant larger number going to our internal metaverse places every day.
And Vince, Vertebrae in particular, how is it being used by institutions or just normal retail clients?
Yeah, so the approach that, because we started as a virtual reality company in 2015 and then pivoted in 2017 to AR because at the time there was just no scale, with VR. But it was always, thinking about in the same way that brands and retailers today have tools to create product photography, manage that photography, and then deploy it out either to their product detail pages on their websites or their advertising campaigns, all in the right JPEG or PNG and the right resolution. That's pretty much, and many of you in this room are familiar, it's very much the same type of problem, but just with 3D and AR content and digital twins. And then we have new alphabet soup acronyms for the content formats. And so, as we work with brands and retailers, many times it's a SaaS platform business model, but you start small, maybe 100 to 500 products that are either try on or product placement, and then you can show and prove the conversion, revenue per visit, average order value lift, return reduction, and then it's kind of like a land and expand model where they build some comfort and say, okay, for my customers that use this, they're buying at this rate higher, and therefore it makes sense for me to continue to invest in this. And then the next phase of that, which I think we're moving into now, is really, okay, instead of just my owned and operated channels, how do I bring those into all of these different metaverse environments, which are becoming increasingly interesting to me based on the amount of scale that exists. Mm-hmm. And then the other side of that is the rights management component. And so, many times it's cost prohibitive to create a 3D product asset more than once, right? These assets can take anywhere between 10 to 60 hours, right? You could turn one into a Picasso if you want, but there's diminishing returns over time in terms of how much you really want to get the detail of the shoe right versus how that helps drive conversion behavior for a consumer. And so, there's a big rights management aspect that will become more increasingly important around the ownership of these assets, not just on the brand's direct to consumer owned and operated channels, but as they share them with retail partners and as they move into different metaverse environments, to be able to ping back and say, yes, this is allowed or this is not allowed.
Emma, maybe you can just speak to the intersection of the two, and you've got AR and institutional-focused metaverse offerings, and then the more fun side of Metaverse's Sandbox, Upland, I guess, as well. Places where people are just going to have some fun, not necessarily buy and sell. And
I'm going to challenge your statement on his behalf. The mirror is a lot of fun.
I'm going to have to come and play around with it.
Yeah, so just for context, we have an AR mirror where it's basically a big augmented reality display, and it's in the Accenture lounge. So it's really awesome, all the latest Snap computer vision technology in there, and great creative and commerce use cases.
And you'll stand in front of the mirror essentially, and it will turn you into a character from Avatar, for example.
Yeah, a character,
you guys are showing
or just give any sort of creative experience you can dream up, and then any sort of commerce or virtual try-on experience as well. Just creating that additional engagement layer for people that are not looking at their phone screen, but maybe they're walking past a shoe store, and the mirror's facing outside, and then everybody that's walking past is trying on the shoes as they're walking past, right? So there's a bunch of different fun ways that you can play around with thinking about how to adopt it.
Fair enough. Emma?
That is super cool. Where is this mirror, on regular times?
72 Promenade, shout out Accenture.
There we go.
Okay.
If you haven't been there, go visit them.
We're going. So, we do lots of different things, and what I find really interesting is that the metaverse can be different things to different people. Mm-hmm. So, for example, the metaverse group, Decentraland, we do real estate, right? So real estate, we also do fun things because we can be fun. Yes. So we also do things like, we also do things like, we are in March, we're going to be having a fashion show, and we do that every quarter, and it's fantastic. And last quarter we had Dolce & Gabbana, we also had Tommy Hilfiger, and we had some other great names. And what I like about Decentraland is that you can sort of, you go and you choose your avatar, and you can sort of walk around and meet all these interesting people. And then I spoke to Dave in August, and you were sharing that your avatars, people are actually able to put their faces on them, and it's really quite cool. And absolutely, it's a different take on it, right? Mm. And so I went onto the website and I was checking it out, and you do that for a meeting, a general meeting that you had that.
Well, at this point, one of the things we're showing also in Promenade 72 is full volumetric video scan. Yeah. So it's gotten a little bit of pickup in the press today, but you basically stand in a volumetric rig. We're showing a medium fidelity one, so it's only 7 cameras. There's a high fidelity one with 100 plus, and you can be projected into. We're doing real time projection into a metaverse environment, 2 different ones, or in augmented reality anywhere. And so we just did an NFL fan experience where we put a football player in and let a fan have them have a conversation in their living room.
Yeah, and that would be really cool for Messi. Yeah, and I would really like that. So I really love that metaverse can be different things to different people, and different opportunities can come up. And what I like about it is that we're still in the early stages. We're also sort of basically trying to see what is it we can accomplish with the metaverse. We're doing some good things, as you guys can see, and some similar things. But I'm kind of curious to see what's going to be happening in the next few years. Yeah. I mean, we can see that. I'm happy to say that we're all getting it right, but we've seen the challenges with the names that we won't mention of what happens when you don't quite get it right, or when there's too much of a bright spotlight on you. Yeah. So it's always interesting to see what innovative things people are coming up with and how we are trying to adapt it to everyday life, which I'll get into a little bit later.
Dirk, maybe you can just touch on what Upland is, how it came about, and there are similar offerings, but how is everyone doing it differently?
Yeah, so obviously. Hello?
There we go. They're helping you out.
So, Yeah, so the original idea came actually back in 2018 when I stood together with my two co-founders, Manny Honigstein and Ian Zuckerman, and we were playing Monopoly one night, and we said, okay, they were coming from the gaming space. I was more the blockchain person, and we said, why don't we take Monopoly? We take the real world, because we watched also Stranger Things at that time. There's a parallel world, and we take blockchain, right? I said, and that's how Upland was born. And we called in 2018 already Upland.me for Metaverse. However, at that time, we said marketing-wise, we cannot even use that term because no one will understand what it is. Because this has all changed, of course, especially with the video from Mark Zuckerberg. Since then, everyone knows it, since they are called Meta as such. So fast forward, so we were inspired by Monopoly. People buy land right now in 20 cities in the US. You don't have to be in those cities to play, right? You can be, can be also remote somewhere, over here in Switzerland and buy property in San Francisco or New York. And as we came from originally idea from Monopoly is that now you collect properties, you earn an income, and now you have to complete a collection. And then you actually go and you trade with other players. So that's where we came from. But now eventually, fast forward, Upland's becoming much more what we call the Metaverse super app. So people will be able to do, or they're already able to set up shops there. They can sell digital goods, like I mentioned. We have a partnership with FIFA. They can sell the videos of FIFA to other players and make money there, right? So it's not just by speculation, right? But by really creating true value, or you're selling maybe some nice outdoor decor items to other players. So all that's what we are proposing. But in the future, we see also that we will have, because the metaverse, we're a strong believer in the open metaverse. That means that people can go from one world to the other, and that they can take their identity with them, they can take their assets with them, and everything. So that's because they own them, and that is what is so important, right? I think everything you do is great technology, but people still do not own most of the stuff, and I think you're also thinking about it, right? And in a certain sense, or some of the stuff is already NFTs, or where do you stand today?
No, we agree with you fully. So actually on Tuesday, we hosted and are driving the Linux Open Wallet Foundation launch to basically create an open source foundation layer for the wallet infrastructure that can house our tokenized identity, money, and objects to enable exactly what you're describing. Is you have to be able to bring yourself in the form of those tokens from place to place to place. Yeah. So we are deeply committed to building. So
you should actually join the Open Metaverse Alliance, because that's what we do, right? That's we want to drive forward the interoperability. Right, I always say that it's user controlled, so you can go from one world, you can go from Upland to Decentraland or whatever, and take the stuff with you. Because why is this so important? Why is ownership so important? Because when you think about it, when people, when you rent a house, right? So do you take care of the house? Maybe a little bit, right? Maybe you just
not as much as much,
right?
If you
own it, right? You take really care of it, and I think. That's the first thing. The second thing is it will create a lot of creativity, because when you own stuff, what you can do. And we always say in the metaverse, right, in the future, now we have all the AI wave we see everywhere, of course, right? But in the future, people have to compete in the real world against machines, against AI. And what we have as people is still we're very creative, right? And we're social, right? And we can really live that in the metaverse. And I think this is the big opportunity, right, forced forward in maybe 5 or 10 years, that there will be people doing, having new jobs in the metaverse, and, they will entertain themselves. But the most important thing, and I think that's why when the metaverse will succeed, is when we manage to bring what you see today in social networks, the whole socializing aspect, into the metaverse. Because this has not been yet solved, right? Because the next generation of social networks is going to look a little bit different than what you have today, with Snap or with Facebook or what have you as such, right? And that's where I think we will also going to see the mass adoption.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to jump in there, Emma.
I would totally want to jump in there. So we're actually seeing that right now. So I don't know. Can you guys hear me? Yeah? So the World Economic Forum, they have something called the Global Community Village.
Global Collaboration Forum.
It's a collaboration forum.
Sorry, you got to have it.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Global Collaboration Village.
Yes, because it's a partnership with Accenture and Microsoft and the World Economic Forum. And what they're solving is the problem that we all get from somebody when you tell them that you've come to the World Economic Forum, you've come to Davos, and they're like, why are you guys spending so much money? Did you fly in on your private jet? Mm-hmm. You can accomplish the same thing by Zoom. And you're like, actually, you can't. You're missing the collaboration that happens when you meet people face to face, the conversations that you just can't get with Zoom, right? And so what the Village is solving for, and I'm totally taking your thunder. Sorry, my friend.
I'm enjoying
it. It's so awesome. It's so awesome. What that Village is solving for is when you have your avatar, you can go into the Village, you can actually talk to people, and you can also have that same form of collaboration that you're having face to face. So I can actually sit on a beach in Jamaica where I was 2 days ago and still have the same kind of fun as I am having here in cold Davos. Anyway, and also what you can do, and the really good benefit of that, because you don't necessarily just want something that you can do in the real world that you can do in the metaverse, is that you can also solve for certain things. So when you're explaining why we should do this, why we should do that, and one of the things I really like is that they have great simulations. So I'm really totally getting into this now. So I tend to live by the water wherever I am in Toronto and in Jamaica. And one of the things that you may have noticed if you live anywhere near the water is that the sea levels are rising. You may see that on the news and things like that. And they're showing how mangroves can actually solve for that. And they have simulations. And so you can see all that in the metaverse. And that's not necessarily something you can see here at Davos. So it's really solving for that real world as well as that virtual problem.
Yeah, I think I participated myself. Look, I mean, we're all for the metaverse, right? But I participated in some of those 3D events, and it just didn't feel the same, right? It's just not. It's something's cool. I think if you have additional use cases, what you just explained for the mangroves, I think that's awesome, right? What you cannot really do and it's really hard to achieve. But I think at the end of the day, something like this event, you go somewhere, it still takes a while, and this gets really replaced, in my opinion.
For those of you who are from the U.S., right? We take, most eighth graders take certainly in the East Coast, will take a field trip to DC.
Yes.
And they do that because there's a proven construct in that if you bring someone to the context of something you want them to learn, it's vastly more effective, right? So that's why you go to a museum and you stand in front of a painting, and that you're being immersed in an environment. And part of what we're demonstrating in the Global Collaboration Village and Professor Schwab's vision is that if we can take people to the context of the world's most challenging issues, you can think about it at multiple levels. So at one level, you can be just inspired by the content you're in, and you actually, to Emma's point, you can't actually have that conversation at the bottom of the ocean in real life, but you could stand around the bottom of the ocean, in a virtual world, and so what we've been demonstrating all week long with senior, everyone who can take through it, is that you can drive a different quality of conversation by bringing someone to the context of and content of that conversation, in a general way or a very specific way. And so we have another example where we're using similar techniques with an energy company on the West Coast who, in life or death situations needs to be able to have their field workers know, touch this, die. Don't touch this, success. And then my favorite one actually is we've got an immersive experience that we're getting incredible feedback from, that we built for one of the U.S. states for their social worker training. So to be able to bring social workers in training into environments, in a home environment, it was a designed to home environment that involved challenging situations, and I'm just going to guns, drugs, violence, and allowing a social worker to practice that interaction in a hyper-realistic environment, and then repeat and do it again and again and again. Again, it's very hard to do in the real world, but in a virtual environment, we're finding it incredibly effective, and getting great feedback from that. So,
but that's that's all about being complementary, right? To what you cannot do, right? But some events you have to do still in real life, right? But some of the stuff which you just mentioned, I think we all agree on that.
For me, one of the pertinent topics in Davos is, the World Economic Forum is down the road, and yet on the promenade here you have crypto and blockchain events just discussing topics that are very native to what they do, right? And a select few are driving the conversation within the World Economic Forum. For me, what I would like to know is, what is the most important application of the metaverse from how you guys have been involved this week for institutions like the World Economic Forum? How can the metaverse really drive change and give value to people in terms of economic, financial, ecological sustainability, those kind of topics?
I'll start. I mean, just piling some of the use cases we had. Obviously, to be able to, the World Economic Forum's power is to be able to convene. Right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now to be able to convene more unlimitedly, because our digital world is unlimited, I think is wildly exciting. Right? Mm-hmm. That ability to basically say, look, we could expand they could expand the stakeholder group to a much wider audience. Have an unlimited set of spaces to convene, not the constraints of a single valley in the mountains. I think that's wildly powerful. I think the other thing is there's the whole notion of being able to use interventions like I was just describing for social worker training, or other, that ability to again take the interactions to the epicenters of our most challenging world problems, I think is also wildly powerful. So I think for widening the stakeholder engagement, being more focused and being able to say, look, we had a great conversation in person this week, and that is special, but we can actually meet again in person next week in a different format and kind of extend the relationship of the conversation. I think those things are wildly valuable.
I think the advancements on the productivity side, like some of the things with the volumetric live streaming where the person's in the room with you and being able to discuss face-to-face, as that stuff evolves, you get that human element back. And I think it always comes back to like, how do you build that human element in that connects you enough into the digital environment to feel like you can make that really lasting, solid connection or be inspired to be there. Outside of that, I mean, some of the most interesting things I've seen this week are actually like using blockchain for a lot of supply chain and just tracking, whether that's for farming or carbon credits. Some of that stuff seems pretty amazing and applicable today. Yeah. I know people are using it, but it's real.
Yep.
I think you probably should differentiate between consumers and and B2B, right? And B2B always have clear use cases. There's a problem and you want to solve it, and some of the problems you can solve then with 3D environments. Consumer is a little bit different. I think was when you send a consumer to a 3D environment, you've heard about that. They end up in this empty space, or maybe there's one guy running around, and what he do.
And that's not a great experience, right? I mean, you don't want to log into like World of Warcraft and the server's empty and there's no one to interact with. And it's not a metaverse, but just as an example, you want to see that other people are actually there using the platform.
Yeah, that's why I think gaming is so important, especially to convey to consumers the whole idea, right? You engage them somehow. You have to complete a mission or whatever's up to, right? So that is going to be very important to make it really accessible also for mass market. I think the B2B, when there's a use case, people, because their boss tells them to use it, so they have to use it, right? But otherwise, I think that, once it gets really widespread in consumer space, it will also help the business space and the other way around. When you said you onboarded 150,000 people, that's great. Now maybe the barrier to entry for those consumers, it's also lower to do when they wear their consumer hat, right? So.
So I have a few things to say.
Go ahead.
So I think that the metaverse got a big boost at the beginning of COVID because people were looking for new ways to interact. And I used to host a bunch of events, and I was looking for a new way to do them. And so I stumbled on the metaverse fairly quickly and had an event in April, and met a few people, including this gentleman from one of the larger mining companies. He was in China. We had a really great time with this event. And then I met him in person in November because he'd been in China until he was able to leave back in September. And so it was really interesting because and so many people who I met at that event, they're like, Emma, hey, I'm this person. It was really good. And the metaverse kind of helped with that, which was fantastic. But I think that for anybody here who's wondering, is the metaverse really an important thing to do? Should we really? Because I know some of you are like,
that is a pertinent question.
We're so happy, but you guys are like, we don't see it. We don't really see it. How many of you have kids? Okay, have you all heard of Roblox? Right? That's why. This is important for us, but it's more important for your kids. Your kids are already doing this. And so what we're trying to do is get ahead of it. because they're using it right now. They've got their money. I told my friend's son that I would mention him because I ended up giving him $50. He's 8 years old, so he could buy some Robux. I was like, what is this thing that you're doing? And then he told me, I was like, this is what I'm doing. And I understood it so much more. So really, the reason that we're doing this, and no one's really talked about it here, it's also for your kids. Your kids are going to embrace this, they're going to love it, and we want to make sure we get ahead of it, and so that we can explain it to them when we're 60.
Yeah. I had an go ahead,
Yeah,
I see you want to jump in.
I just want to pile onto that. I mean, so when I was a kid, if I wanted to talk to someone who wasn't within shouting distance, I had to go to my kitchen to a corded phone, and I had a single point of entry to being able to talk to someone over space and time. Right. That was where my communicate. Right. And then we get fast forward to now, and right now everyone in this room can talk to anyone, anywhere, anytime. Mm-hmm. Right. Let's put aside the digitally excluded, but for everyone who's digitally enabled, we are now going to do that for everything else. Right, so that I could tell a similar story. Right, I was just on the cusp of like ATM wide scale availability. But if I go back to my parents, right, when they were going out for a weekend, if you didn't make it to the bank teller by that to get cash, like you didn't have cash for that weekend. Yeah. Right. So the notion of so hold on to that thought of basically being able to have anything, anywhere, anytime. For all the rest of our senses and experiences, why would we hold on to a flat two-dimensional digital world experienced through a flat plane of glass for a moment longer than we need to? Mm-hmm. So, when a computer started as something you drove to because it was the size of a building, yes. Right? And then it was something you could walk to with the advent of the home PC, and that's
now you're walking around with it in your hand.
Now you're walking around with your pocket, and now I've tried the next generation of we over the next 3 to 5 years, right? I put these pair of glasses on every morning. And I wear them all day long, and I take them off before I go to sleep. It is very natural for me to have something on my face. Yes. The proposition of having a heads-up display for the world, once I have that, why would you ever go back, right? And you could think of dystopian ways that plays out, yes. And the like, and we need to be very responsible in how it develops. But I think there is an inevitability to our progression away from our digital world being constrained to only a flat plane of glass, yes. At a single access point.
I'm cognizant of time, and I think we can move on to the final talking point, which is, of course, the title of the panel, The Future of the Metaverse. I would like to think that it's going to be some sort of amalgamation between, Dirk's Upland as the venue, but it is also an augmented 3D reality that people can go to, very much like Ready Player One you were mentioning earlier. Yeah. I mean, is that the future of the metaverse, and is that where we're all going to be meeting in 5 years' time instead of Davos?
This is a famous saying, red technology doesn't matter at the end of the day, and maybe wear glasses or something. Also, people say Web 4.0 is, then we were talking about Web 3.0. Web 4.0 is when we start implementing the chips in us, right? And we immediately merge with technology, so that's coming. Probably.
It's here in Davos. Someone just gave me their business card through an implant.
Yeah, I've seen, I was at conferences in Silicon Valley.
I've seen someone embed a Bitcoin Lightning chip, and that's how they, if there's a Bitcoin Lightning payment thing, they've got the chip in their hand, and that's a bit hectic, but...
but what was going to happen is going to be, I think the metaverse is going to be, let's say, a digital companion. When you think about media, always came closer to us, right? In the 1920s, you were actually, people were watching, this flickering black and white movie, and there was somebody playing piano, and there's this famous saying, I don't know whether it's true, it was the train entrance of the Gare de Ciudad in France. And it was really black and white, and people were running out of the cinema because they think the movie would enter the cinema. And then everyone knows, right? When you watch an old James Bond movie from the 70s, right? I mean, you're gonna laugh. What is this, right? But at that time, people, this is high tech, right? What do you see there?
But so no.
Technology is always coming closer to us, and we're training our brains to be, and it's gonna merge. So I think the metaverse is just gonna be naturally your daily companion, right? And you have different access points. You use your glasses, or hopefully the chips one day, and it's gonna be just around us, very much like the internet is around us. And that's very, very natural combination with us humans.
I think, just to interject there, what's interesting to me is the implementation of blockchain technology, because I was chatting to Sébastien Bourget from Sandbox, thank you, sorry, it's been a long day. And he was saying to me the conversations he's had with regulators and policymakers this week here in WEF is very much around data protection and privacy, and that's what they want to know about. So with that in mind, integrating blockchain, how important is it for the future of the metaverse? And up to anyone to take that one.
I think it's central to it, right? That having a self-managed wallet infrastructure that was built on an open source foundation with common standards, so that it's not a wallet per thing, and it's not one to rule them all, right? We can put the competition frontier at the lovable layer, have a foundation layer where they all work. The anchor points for the tokenization of identity, money, and objects to sit within them, right? The blockchain provides the most credible, functional, scalable, auditable. That is that architectural pattern has beat out the other ones as we've evaluated them all. Yeah. But that wallet also needs to work with legacy systems and the like, and so it's critical. It's a critical role that this community is playing in the tokenization of everything and the structured management of it.
And that digital wallet goes way beyond just the metaverse too, right? And I know it's a blockchain element or component, but it's such a clear fundamental need. Where we're not carrying 70 different cards or re-authenticating into 90 different places, right? And that whole concept, whether that's in the metaverse or outside of it, is still just critically important. I think a lot of times people say, or come up with ideas just for the sake of it being metaverse, or come up with ideas for the sake of it being blockchain, but it just all comes down to human nature, what humans want to use it for. And as the hardware matures, gets better, becomes the form factor of your glasses, right now, and that human element is there. Like the world is going to guide us on ultimately what the future is by what they want to use and why they want to use it.
Yeah, I think the only challenge we have right now is it's the technology. It's just not mass market ready, right? It's just tell them to record your passphrases, and when you lose them, all your stuff is gone, right?
Cry.
It's just not going to work, and unfortunately, it's also a little bit digital divide right now. Those people who are well educated, right? We all know who's using blockchain these days, and that's not ready there, I think. But once we find other ways to access then blockchain in a certain way, maybe directly associated with biometrics, and of course there's some downsides to it, but everything around it, I think that's when it becomes easier. When I'm repeating myself, but when it becomes your digital companion, you don't have to think about passphrases and digital wallets and whatever anymore, right? That's where we're gonna probably succeed, and then. But it's probably 4 or 5 years until we have that.
There you have it. I know we're pretty much out of time, so Dave, Vince, Dirk, Emma, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for listening to us today.